PSLF, or Public Service Loan Forgiveness for short. What the heck is it? Who's eligible? Who should be taking advantage of it? Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Megan from Student Loan Planner. I'm one of the senior student loan consultants on the team, and we deal with PSLF every day. There's a lot of folks that are pursuing this program. I do think it's a good program. So let's talk about the requirements.
Let's get into it.
There are 4 eligibility requirements we have to check the box for to maintain eligibility towards PSLF and to be eligible in the first place. So number 1 is we have to be working full-time at an eligible employer. Full-time, they determine as at least 30 hours on average a week. And if you are a teacher, for example, I know you don't work in the summer usually, unless you're coaching sports or doing summer school. But if you're not working during the summer, that's okay. It is for your contractual period of time, which you're hired for the year. And sometimes you're paid over the course of the year.
It is a full-time job.
So that doesn't count against you. Maternal, paternal leave does not count against you. Vacation time doesn't count against you. So just 30 hours on average per week. That's the requirement to be full-time. And who's an eligible employer? Well, an eligible employer is either a 501c3 entity, a nonprofit, or a government entity. That's federal, state, local, tribal, city government. You can check your employer's eligibility by going to the studentaid.gov website. There is a PSLF data tool that you can use to plug in the employer's EIN number or employer identification number. This number is kind of like the social security number for the business or for the entity itself. And if you put that in and the system shows that it's eligible, we're good to go. If it's not pulling anything up or it's unsure if it's eligible, don't panic. That might just mean that no one submitted a form for that entity before, so you can go ahead and submit an employer certification form for that employer to go ahead and get it in the system, and they will confirm eligibility. Who we're paid by is what matters. So if you are a W-2 employee for one of these entities, you are good to go. There's one exception in California and Texas, where if you are a physician in one of these states and you are unable to work directly for the nonprofit hospital system that you're working at now, you have to be hired through a partners group. Again, this is only for California and Texas. Then you are also eligible for PSLF. Why is this the case? It's because the state is prohibiting you from being eligible technically by not allowing you to be hired directly by the employer. So they've carved out some special circumstances for you guys. So you would want to submit a PSLF form for the hospital system that you're working at. I know that's not your employer technically, but they recognize that as an exception in those 2 states. Now, if we're just a contractor for the government or a contractor for a nonprofit entity, but we're paid by a for-profit company, you're not going to be eligible. Remember, it's who pays you is who dictates your eligibility here.
Say it for me again, word for word.
You have to be employed by the nonprofit or government entity.
Got it. What's our next move?
Number 2 is we have to have direct federal loans. Before 2010, you could have borrowed what's called FFEL or Family Federal Education Loans. If you still have these loans, you are going to have to consolidate to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. So that's fixable, but consolidate on the studentaid.gov website and your payment counts can continue from there, or can start from there, I should say. This is the same for Perkins loans as well, or health professional loans. There's a list of a few different types of loans that are eligible for consolidation into the federal direct loan system. So make sure that if you do have these types of loans, you consolidate and make sure they're eligible for PSLF. One way you can check these loan details is going into your studentaid.gov account on the studentaid.gov website. You can take a look at your loan details and it will tell you if your loans are direct or if they have that FFEL language in front of it. So you just want to make sure that you see direct for every single loan that you have outstanding. That will ensure that all of your loans are eligible for PSLF.
That's easy enough.
Third requirement is we have to be on an income-driven repayment plan. There are a number of income-driven plans available. You can choose one that is the cheapest for you. The goal when you're working towards public service loan forgiveness is to pay as little as possible to maximize how much we can get forgiven later.
Stick to my ears.
So you want to be on the cheapest income-driven plan available to you. You can apply for an income-driven plan directly through the studentaid.gov website. Easy peasy. We've got some free calculators on our website that you can use at studentloanplanner.com to check out what the payments or the estimated payments could be for you. Fourth and last requirement is we have to make 120 qualifying monthly payments. Okay, that means all three of the prior things we talked about have to be existing at the same time for payments to count or to be considered qualifying. We have to be full-time at an eligible employer. We have to have federal direct loans, and we have to be making payments on an income-driven repayment plan. If all of those things are true at the same time, then that payment that you made is going to be eligible. And what you do is you submit a PSLF form, an employment certification form, through the studentaid.gov website. I've said that website a lot today because that is the source of all truth here with student loans, studentaid.gov. You submit that application through the website with your employer information, your hours, and how to contact your employer because they will have to sign off on the application as well. The process is digital, though. Thank goodness. It used to not be digital, but now you can submit the email address for the employer in that form, and they'll send them a copy of what you completed for them to simply just sign off on to say, yep, they work here. Yep, they're full-time. And that gets sent directly back to the studentaid.gov system to process for payment counting.
That's right, the internet.
We have to make 120 qualifying payments. That is 10 years if we were completely consecutive, never missed a payment. Do you have to be consecutive? No. Do you have to stay at the same employer? The key is you have to accumulate 120 qualifying payments where those three things are true that we talked about. But you can be changing employers. That's totally fine as long as the next employer you're working for is also eligible. Then you won't have a break in service. If you take a break between employers, like let's say you take a month or two off, the months that you have taken off that you're not employed by an eligible employer are not going to count towards PSLF. But when you start working in public service again, the payment count will pick back up with where it left off. The key things that you need to do to make sure that you're eligible for PSLF is first, make sure you have a studentaid.gov login. Get access to that account if you don't have access to it. Second, check to make sure you have the correct types of loans. And if not, you need to fix that as soon as possible through consolidating. Third, we need to make sure we're on an income-driven repayment plan. So make sure within the studentaid.gov platform that it shows that you're on an income-driven repayment plan. Fourth, we need to submit an income-driven repayment plan for any eligible employer you've had since you've been paying on your loans. So it is a retroactive form. That means it's always going to look back at your prior history, but it's only going to look back as far as October 2007, because that's when the program started, or it's going to look back as far as you've had the loans and you've been making payments on the loans, right? So one of those two is the starting point of when they start counting the qualifying payments. But make sure to submit that PSLF form for each eligible employer, and they'll count up your payments to give you an idea of where you stand.
Count 'em up, dog.
You will have a payment tracker within the studentaid.gov website, which is super handy because it will give you a transparent look at where you're at towards the 120 over time. It'll tell you which months are qualifying, which months are not eligible. That way you can catch any problems sooner rather than later. I will say their processing times are not awesome. So if you're submitting a PSLF form for the first time, it's going to take a few months for them to get through that payment history and deliver that payment count update for you. So don't panic if it's taking a while.
It's the government.
Once you reach the forgiveness threshold, this is the exciting part. All you have to do is submit that PSLF form, the same form that we've been submitting to update our employer information. The application is going to ask you if you think you've made 120 qualifying payments. You would say yes to this. If it doesn't allow you to say yes because the system doesn't think you've made 120 payments for some reason, that's okay. You can still say no and it'll let you move forward with the application. They're going to check the payment count regardless. The next question will ask if you want to stay in forbearance while they're processing your application. You can say yes if you're pretty sure that you're at 120 months, or you can keep paying if you are worried that you might be off a couple payments and you don't want to delay in getting the loan forgiveness ultimately. Once they've reviewed your payment count history, they will send you a letter that says, hey, here's your payment count update. And if it's 120, you'll get that notice. And then following that notice will be a congratulatory notice that says, yep, you've reached PSLF. So that, in a nutshell, is public service loan forgiveness. If you are eligible for this program, certainly take a look at it. Make sure that this is something that you're implementing with your loans to save you the most money on your student loan strategy. If you need one-on-one help, we're here for you. Student Loan Planner. We have a bunch of free content on our website that can help you navigate the PSLF process, but we also have one-on-one consultations that we can help you with as well.
You're hired.
Good luck on your journey with PSLF, and I'll catch you in the next video.